Hello and welcome. My name is Myra. You may call me Mercy if you prefer. I am speaking to you now the day after our full moon in Leo. So today is the 29th of January 2021. And because we're moving out of a very powerful year and we have just experienced our first full moon of 2021, I felt drawn to doing a reading about 2020 and what it was teaching us. Personally, I felt like it was one of the most powerful years I experienced as far as manifestation and the way that our mindset can and does absolutely affect the ways that we manifest, what we manifest, how quickly, all of it. You know, our minds are always creating our reality, and this is all the time. It's not limited just to like only in 2020 you can create your life, but you know, there were a lot of really powerful astrological transits that happened last year. There were a lot of very unique global happenings that happened. And I just feel like we were all given an opportunity to choose how we wanted to respond to it. And I found that I was having to choose over and over and over. And it was very trying. I think, you know, it was a difficult year for a lot of people. And I'm just so grateful for the ways that I was supported during that year, to be able to process everything that needed to be rewired in my own mind. So we can just jump right into it. There are two parts to the reading that I'll show you. The first one is sort of looking at, you know, making that choice and leading up to it. And then the next part is what that choice looks like, how we incorporate it, what the message is, how we can strengthen that connection. And it's all based around this card from the tarot deck I created. It would be number 22 in the Major Arcana, which doesn't exist. Usually the Major Arcana ends at 21 with the world or the universe. But this card is the final card of the entire deck, and I've called it the Master card. And looking at numerology, 2020 was also 22, which is the master number, right? So a lot of people were saying, 2020 vision, and then, you know, a lot of things happened where, you know, people felt disappointed, but I see that those challenges were actually opportunities for us to fully understand 2020 vision. So that's what we'll be talking about in this video. Thank you so much for being here. All right, so here we are. This stack of cards on the left is the first part of the reading about making the choice. And you can see here with the Fool that begins the deck that 2020 was giving us the opportunity to choose one or the other of these. The King of Wands on the soul side, the sun side, is choosing to live in their power, understanding, you know, hermetic principles, understanding the power of working with our own energy, working on ourselves, tuning into spirit, and being still. The other side, the lunar side, is more karmic, and it's choosing karmic lessons, it's choosing pain, even subconsciously without realizing it, and how perfectly it tied in with the Leo full moon last night, where, you know, Leo is our inner child, and it can represent the masks that we wear. So you can see the person in the Seven of Swords card. You know, they're not happy, but they're wearing a mask that makes it look as if that they're happy. And those are the masks that we learned when we were young, you know, brought us love, you know, made us lovable, made us admirable, gave us attention, made us acceptable to society, you know. And it could be just things that your parents taught you too. That's something that I found in 2020 was, you know, things that my parents taught me when I was a child. I was really looking at them and sitting with them and asking if I wanted it to be true. Okay, so this is the more dense side over here, the lunar side. It's a little bit more dense. You can see the world card here. I have another version of the world that's the universe in this deck. Those are the extra cards are the one I showed you before, and the two versions of the world. So this represents more, you know, physical and dense energy, and you can see that that's what the person is looking at. They're keeping their vision kind of small, and they're seeing the physical, whereas this person choosing to go this route, which leads to this other reading, they see things from a bigger picture because they're tuned into the divine and they're receiving divine guidance and downloads, uploads, whatever you want to call it. So as we moved on with the year, the people on the left may have been feeling very bored, like maybe they were trying to do things, but maybe they weren't feeling like they were receiving anything, and they just felt like maybe it was a year to just chill and do nothing. I know, you know, I'm sure most of us maybe fell into that, especially during the winter, I found, of being so exhausted or just bored that we didn't want to do much. And I kind of see this in this reading as like a feeble effort, like this person is trying to make waves, but they're not really trying, you know, they're not jumping in the water, getting in there and making waves, but they're just, you know, using their finger to try to make waves. So maybe even like scrolling through social media, whatever, trying to make connections that way without actually, you know, really doing anything. And on the right, we have the Star card, and this is someone, I've portrayed it as someone who has just really kind of fallen to their knees and asked to understand. There's sort of a despair that could come along with everything that happened in the world in 2020. And this person, it's kind of like they saw it and they saw that maybe there was something more and bigger. And so they tuned in and they asked Spirit to show them, you know, to show them, to help them work through the karma, to help them understand, and to show them ways that they could help. And so what we have at the top is my version of the Nine of Wands, which is based off of a comic I found online where there's a man running away from people who are trying to harm or kill him, and he reaches this cliff, and he's afraid to jump because, you know, he'll die, but then the people behind him are, you know, also going to kill him. So he hears a voice from the sky that says, "Jump." And he looks back, he sees the people, but he's like, "I can't jump, you know, that's foolish. I can't just jump off a cliff." And he hears the voice again. It just says, you know, "Jump." And he turns around and he sees like either way he'll die. So he chooses to jump, and he lands just below some fog or some clouds, and he lands on solid ground. And not only is he safe, but he's also hidden from whoever was trying to harm him. Okay, so that right there is the alchemy that I'm talking about from 2020. So we'll move on to the other reading now. All right, so here we are. This is the soul path. This is the Fool choosing that they no longer want to live in this jungle of confusion and pain and fear and survival. And they've chosen to give their power over to something that is greater than them and within all things. So you hear it by many names. You hear it by God. You hear it by Great Spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the all that is, that thing which lies within all living things. So what does that look like here? So as we move over from this other reading, the first card that we start with is the Queen of Cups. I see Queen of Cups as a feeling. So how I experienced this in 2020 was, you know, as everyone was becoming unemployed from the virus, you know, to begin it all, I felt like that was sort of the beginning of a lot of the chaos. What I did was I looked around me and I counted my blessings. I gave thanks for what I had. I recognized the opportunity, and I felt into what I wanted to experience. So water, the Queen of Cups, water is a lot about feeling and emotion. So I took personally the opportunity of being unemployed in 2020 to divert my focus from the work I was doing that I wasn't enjoying to just make money, to what I've always enjoyed doing, which is art and yoga and spending time with friends and going in nature and all those beautiful things that light my soul up from the inside and just fill me with just beautiful, blissful emotions. So I saw this as the beginning of it all. And then you step into the Magician, where the Magician is the number one in the major arcana. The Fool is 0, so the Magician kind of starts the counting, whereas the Fool is the potential for choice. The Magician is taking the first step. So you see, you've now felt into the goodness, you've counted your blessings, and now the Magician, what I experienced was the Magician is speaking into reality and writing into reality the truth that they could identify in the moment that they wish to see on a grander scale. So what that looked like for me was, saying and writing down, wow, thank you for the opportunity and the time to work on my art. And thank you, government here in the US, for even paying me to stay home and do this. And granted, our stimulus checks, they weren't much, but you can keep that lack out of the equation and just say thank you for giving me this opportunity, and sort of setting your intention from there. Count your blessings, that I have a stable living situation, that I have people who love me, that I have access to clean food and water, that I have all this time to myself to do what I love. And with that, the Magician is holding a book. And in 2020, this kind of just hit me. I found a book about Golden Dawn magic. And it's all like light worker magic, kind of focusing on light and healing and helping and working with God, Great Spirit, to help humanity. And so it starts with this yearning where you realize that you're in a good place, and you would like to serve the greater good with what you do best in a way that will bring you the most joy. And so this person in this card, you see, they're coming from this place of feeling so full, and they're just looking for ways to utilize that for the greater good. And so we'll travel up the tree, and we see two things here. First, we have the Four of Pentacles, and then we have the Six of Pentacles. And kind of how I see this is defending the goodness, even if it seems naive to some people. So when you hear about something negative, doing that mental alchemy to make it beautiful, because everything within it has beauty. And this card is reminding me of a few different talks and lectures that I've listened to in the last few days. I guess the first in the timeline would be from Ram Dass, when he asks us, how deeply are we willing to love God? And so how much can we love Shiva? And if you don't really know who Shiva is, Shiva is one of, I would call it like the Holy Trinity in Hindu religion. Shiva the Destroyer. So Shiva represents the darkness, the death, the things that we don't approve of, the things that we think are unworthy of love, but you see that it's all part of God. So I don't know if it was Ram Dass or if it was somewhere else that I read this, but the true point of someone's enlightenment is when they can see God in Shiva and love Shiva. So that is what I think our challenge was this year. At least in the US, we were facing, a lot of racial injustice, a lot of political unrest. I got really into the climate movement, looking at, the facts and the logic of where we're at. And, there's a lot of anger. You can see there's like red on the outside of his green little bubble. I see red. I mean, both colors have positive and negative connotations, just like everything. Everything has its own duality. But how I see this is there's all of this anger and fear on the outside, but this person is holding on to their treasure, which I'll call love, goodness, God, Great Spirit. And they have this protective bubble around them that ensures that they're keeping their vibration in the vibration of love and not allowing themselves to fall into the fear. They're holding on to the goodness. So with this, I heard a talk from Achyuta Bhava yesterday about the full moon in Leo, which felt just perfect for this, where he asked... he said, when we're on the spiritual path, other people's faults can become a lot more clear to us, and we almost feel like it's our duty to recognize them, whereas it's actually the reverse is true. And he said this beautiful metaphor that I think he might have said was from somewhere else, but I'm not remembering where that was. I'll put the link to the video in the bio here if you'd like to listen. He's an excellent astrologer. But he gave the metaphor that we can choose to be flies on the festering wound that is where people fall short, or we can choose to be the honeybees which seek out the sweetness and recognize the sweetness of the honey. Right? So we can choose to look at all of the things that we don't like, that piss us off, that we think are unrighteous, unholy. Or we can look at these things and recognize and acknowledge that they are teaching us something. They are still, like Ram Dass would say, they're still God in drag. They're still serving their purpose. And the best way that we can serve is to stay in our heart, to stay connected to what we hold dear, to what we value, to what we deem righteous. And not force on others, but hold that in our energy and trust that that is enough to create the change that we wish to see. And not only is it enough, but it's the most potent thing that we can do to create the change we want to see. So with that card, we had the Six of Pentacles, and you can see here there's two people that are, bringing food to this homeless person, and I don't know if they can see it, but that person has a halo, and so you see that that too is God in drag. And I see this as working with God, or Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it. God doesn't have a religion. Religion is just different stories that help people understand God based on, whatever cultures they resonate most with. So this is like, you protect that goodness and you ask for guidance of where you can help. So an example that I have from 2020, when everything was happening with George Floyd, and then, stories were coming out about Breonna Taylor, and all of these really awful stories were coming out about racism in the US and with our police force. And there were protests happening, riots in some parts. And I was in a place where I was spending time with soul family and doing a lot of yoga, spending a lot of time in nature. And I did not feel the call to go out and be in these angry groups that were yelling, like, fuck the police. I just wasn't in that place. But my heart also hurt for this huge group of people that are marginalized and killed unjustly. So what I did is I asked God help me understand people of color better, because, you know, I come from a rural Midwestern town where we didn't really have many people of color. So I asked, you know, to learn more so that I can have more empathy and more compassion, and so that I can help that community in a way that is most authentic to me. And in doing that, I was brought to this beautiful place of grace. Like, literally, it's called Place of Grace, on Hood Street, that it really is in the low-income part of town. And what we do is we help the community. We serve them food. And I met our neighbors, this young 8-year-old Cuban boy, and we became friends, and he would share stories, just awful stories about what's happened in his life. And I could see how afraid he was from, you know, the stories that he was hearing. He was always afraid of being shot. You know, whenever he saw a cop car, he'd get genuinely afraid. So in just asking to understand, I was brought a new friend that helped me grow in compassion, that helped me grow in understanding. And, you know, hopefully I have been and can continue to be a light in this child's life that has experienced, you know, so much pain and darkness. And so what I'm trying to say is, we can ask God, we defend this goodness and what we hold dear and true, and even our authenticity. You know, we don't sacrifice the parts of ourselves, you know, to do what the mainstream media tells us we need to do, but we can ask for a way to serve the greatest good in a way that's authentic to us, and of course we'll be supported because we're serving the highest good. So that's what is at the top of this tree of life, at the top of the master number. And so you can see, you know, this person has reached for wisdom, they receive the wisdom, so now they come back down to earth. And you can see this is kind of like with Kundalini awakening, the point isn't just to reach God and just stay there, but to hold on to this and bring it back down to earth. So we have the Empress next with the Seven of Wands. And so, you know, the Queen of Cups, the Magician, they've traveled up, they've learned to hold on to what they hold as beautiful and good and loving. They've asked for help, they've asked for God's support in doing this, and now they're working with God. Okay, so this Empress also creates. The Magician creates, and the Empress creates. We can say that this is the more subtle realm of creation, where you know how I talked about before, the Magician was changing the way that they're thinking and perceiving, and then the Empress is bringing that down to earth in a tangible way. Right, so I'm going to include some of the other cards that are here before I go on, because I feel like they all tie together in a really beautiful way. You can see the Sun card below these guys, and I think it's just so beautiful how these cards mirror each other. This guy's actually based off the Hermit in the deck, but the one coming down from the tree as well as the Sun are just looking at these flowers in awe and kind of choosing. You see he's choosing which flower. You know, and the sun is just like, wow, the flower. It reminds me of that Buddhist story about, you know, the monks that would just stare at the flower, and they were told by their teacher that that's how they would reach enlightenment, you know, and then, you know, an hour later or something, one of them just said, you know, that's kind of the feeling that I get here. And it's when you can see, you know, as I mentioned, when you can see God in all things, even the Shiva, even the difficult things, even the things that bring death and destruction and pain and suffering, when you can see the light in those things, that is where the true alchemy happens. And when you can continue to keep your focus on the light in those things, that'll grow, that lightness will grow. Right? So, and you can see the Empress too. She's also just admiring this bird, and birds fly. It's also a blue bird. I don't know if you can see that, But blue can be equated to wisdom. And you can see the little kid that she's holding hands with is reaching towards the ground, towards a frog, because he just thinks it's so cool. So there's like a sense of wonderment here. When you reach that point of seeing the goodness and seeing God, it's like a wonderment when you can look around you and you see that it's all God. It's all Great Spirit. You know, you hear a stranger talking on the street and what they say answers your thoughts. And you're just in wonderment. You walk through the woods and you suddenly get this jolt of wisdom or inspiration, and you just feel so connected to God, you just want to cry. You know, and that's what comes out of this experience. And with the card next to it, we have the Seven of Wands, which can talk about perseverance, but also like, you know, maybe people don't fully support it and they don't support the way that you view things. They might think it's naive or immature or irresponsible. And so this kind of talks about how not everyone is in the same place as you. Not everyone can understand as deeply God and the goodness. And so this is just a reminder that there will be people on your path who try to knock you down. You know, I have a friend that we work fairly closely with at Place of Grace, who she used to work at a hospitality house for homeless people. And that place closed when the virus happened, but you know, there's still a homeless community. There's still a great need for supplies and resources and just a friend, somebody to hear them and to, you know, respect them and really see them. And our friend Sue embodies that. She continues to go out on her own every day with her car full of, you know, mittens, gloves, food, blankets, you know, and she knows everybody, all the people who sleep in the park, she knows them all. But even though she's doing the work of a saint, there are still people who have sent her hate messages, you know, and said, we don't like the people in the park. Like, why are you encouraging this? It's very inconvenient, you know. So what I'm trying to say is there will be people who want to challenge your perspective because they're not where you're at. They don't feel the same connection. They don't feel that same mystical union. They can't see the logic in what you're doing, and they're still stuck in that idea that you need to get off your ass and, you know, fucking do something, join the protests, you know, get a real job. And what this is saying is, no, the Empress creates her reality. The Empress creates her reality, and she knows she has this deep wisdom, this deeply rooted wisdom. Say your roots are in the sky, right? She has this deeply rooted wisdom that creates her reality, and she's seen it. She's seen the way that a certain thought or idea can wiggle its way into the mind and completely change the reality that one is living in. Okay, so this is like a reminder that once you come back down from this awakening, there will be those who haven't been there yet, and they don't understand, and they might try to bring you down. And you just need to stay strong. And again, you can call on spirit if you need to, for that strength, or even pray for them. That's been something really strong. And again, prayer isn't just, you know, like one religion. All it is just intending well for another. You know, like if someone insults you or wrongs you, to just close your eyes for a moment and ask, you know, for their grace. Ask for them to have what they need to experience this fullness of love with the divine that you experience. And it's that simple. So we can move down now below the roots of this tree of life and see what's below. And what we have is the Prince of Pentacles and the Sun. And I just thought it was really beautiful how these paired up, that these two characters are just admiring life. You know, the Prince of Pentacles is on a path, walking very slowly, admiring the plants, the butterflies, feeling the wind, listening to the trees creak, and just enjoying being there and being present. going slow, not rushing, not trying to achieve, not trying to get somewhere, but just being right there in that moment and loving it and appreciating being there. And the sun is basically doing the same thing, right? Standing on the ground, he's got one hand on a rock and one hand holding a flower. And you see there's this rainbow of healing overhead and the sun behind this person's head, the butterfly that's also blue, the butterfly of wisdom. It looks just like the bird the Empress is holding on their forehead. And it's like they have this innate wisdom of the beauty of where we are, and they're focusing on that honey, see, and honey is slow moving too, right? Like the Prince of Pentacles, just to admire the sweetness of life, to admire the beauty of a flower, the sounds of nature, the feeling of sun on your skin. That's what this is rooted in. It started with the Queen of Cups, of that feeling, and maybe that was part of the alchemy then too, that, when shit started to hit the fan in a sense, in 2020, or whenever you're seeing this, this isn't just applicable to the year 2020, right? This is just, in my perspective, what this 22 master is, and 2020 was, 22, the master number. So this could have just been, going for a hike in the woods to try to de-stress when shit's hitting the fan, and to just take that moment of being still and feeling the sun and feeling the grass beneath your feet. And I just want to cry even talking about it right now. Just the beauty and the bliss that comes with appreciating where you are. And that's where it started, that's where it goes, and that's where it continues. And it's like this circle of goodness where you're defending the goodness and recognizing it and putting your attention there, because you know that where your attention goes, energy flows, and then it's created. That's how life works. Okay, so at the base of all of this, we have the Chariot, which is absolutely perfect. You see there's still this duality here. Like I said, there's the sun and there's the moon. And this person, they're not holding reins. They're just using their mind to run the show. The way that they perceive the world is how they're running the show. And so you could say these horses are in the mind. There's the yin and the yang, the Star of David. This is really calling on that balance, that inner balance to drive the carriage forward. And one of my tarot decks, the Psychic Tarot, by John something, I don't remember his last name. This card is Triumph. So it's like triumph over the mind, synthesis of the elements, with the Magician there too, and letting the Great Spirit and this treasure chest that we hold tightly, our values, run the show. We're so deeply rooted in our faith. We've been shown what works. We've seen manifestations come to life. We've seen thought forms blossom into things, sometimes instantaneously, sometimes in ways that we couldn't have even expected, better than we could have even asked for, because we were curious and we leaned into it, and we said yes. And this is the triumphant spirit who has triumphed over the negativity of duality. Because even, going back to the first reading, the lunar path isn't bad, you guys, but it is shrouded with illusion and false things. So we could say the physical realm, right? It's so shrouded with physical things that it can't see quite clearly the magic of Great Spirit that we're talking about here, right? Because it's too muddled down to hear that subtle voice that is grace. So that is what this master number 22 means to me. What 2020 as the master 22 was teaching the collective. And again, it's not just 2020. We have these lessons all the time. But yeah, I just really wanted to share this with you guys because as I said, to bring this full circle, this all just flew out after a yoga session last night during the full moon in Leo. The full moon in Leo is our first full moon of the year. So I just feel like this is like 2020 is now saying farewell to us. And we can say thank you to it. Thank you for the hard lessons. Thank you. Thank you for the pain. Thank you for taking this mask away. You know, if you chose that, thank you for taking this mask away. And thank you for showing us that anything is possible. You know, and moving forward, you know, referring to this first reading, just try your best to remember. Do your practice. Do what helps you feel connected. Keep your channels clear. Open your connection to the divine. And I'll follow this video up with the meditation that this is based on. I actually recorded this last night and I didn't like it. I was trying to be quiet because my partner was sleeping. But I actually did begin with this Tree of Life meditation. So look for the other video that I'll be posting following this video for that meditation. It's a really great one to ground down and reach those branches into the sky and allow yourself to be a channel here between the heavens and the earth. So just remember that what you wish for, especially when it comes from this heart-centered place, especially when you pray for others, intend well for others, ask for goodness for others, for those who are suffering. And when you make your own energetic field stronger, that's where the magic comes from. It comes from love and self-empowerment and faith and the grace that we can gift others when they're not meeting our expectations of goodness. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for sticking around and listening to this potent reading message from God's source. I will leave links in the description for my tarot deck that we used for this reading, as well as for Akita Bava's full moon video. Thank you all for being here, and blessed full moon to you. Blessed January to you, and blessed 2021 to you. I hope that you can carry this message with you as we move forward this year, and that you will see your life graced with love and immense joy and fulfillment. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my other videos.